Hi there, I'm Connie McNeill, the Associate Pastor for Administration and Discipleship at Second Baptist Church in Liberty, Missouri. We welcome you to join us for these midweek pauses. In the past decade, I have been increasingly interested in both my ancestral and spiritual heritage. They are connected. I'm of Scottish and Irish descent and therefore from a family full of Celtic traditions, including Celtic spirituality. There are Celtic spiritual practices which, in our Christian tradition, are intended to grow us closer to God and to invite the work of the living Spirit of God to be alive and dynamic in us. One of those practices is that of peregrinitio, which is wandering to find our place of resurrection. The Celtic monastic tradition saw wandering as a powerful spiritual practice. Now, the term for this is unique wandering is peregrinitio, or peregrinitio pro Christo, the call to wander for the love of Christ. There's not an exact translation into English, and though we use the English word wandering, it's not the same as a pilgrimage. On pilgrimage, you have a charted course for something that we plan to do on the encounter or the experience. This peregrinatio wandering is an invitation to let go of our own agenda and discover where God is leading. In a very real sense, God is both destination and way, companion and guiding force. God is the calling to the wandering and the unfolding of the wandering that happens for us. And guess who greets us at our peregrinatio end, the end of our wandering? That same living God. Reaching the end is our resurrection, which is the goal of the wandering, to come to the place where our gifts can be brought fully to life for the rest of our days. The goal of peregrinatio is more about finding our destiny than a destination. One of the great biblical examples of this destiny wandering is found in Genesis. It's the story of Abram and Sarai. He's told to go to a place that God would show him. So they began wandering to find the place that God has for them. And along the way, some really good things happen and some really hard things happen. From chapters 12 to 25 in Genesis, this peregrinatio of Abram and Sarai takes place. And by the way, they become Abraham and Sarah. And it unfolds for us over a course of decades. There are many places that they stop and sometimes live there for a while, but not until they reach the place that God intended for them to do they finally, ultimately, find their destiny. So how do we practice peregrinatio in the modern world? What kind of wandering can we do during a pandemic, for example? Some of you have a very personal kind of wandering going on in your life, and you're needing to find a place of resurrection, your destiny. Finding our destiny means finding that which satisfies our heart. Our resurrection is where we find what is truly life-giving for us. There are no established paths to follow. We will be pulled away from what is safe because it's what's familiar. Moving us out of our comfort zones, this spiritual practice calls us to intentionally open ourselves to reach beyond our familiar boundaries and patterns. This makes us really vulnerable. Absolutely vulnerable. but it also creates the environment for us to experience a wider and maybe a wilder God than we have known. There's a sweet series on Netflix right now. We're all binging, right? And this story has a Miss Thatcher in it who leaves the comfort of her very privileged, wealthy, urban Canadian upbringing to wander to the Wild West frontier of Canada, specifically to a Canadian coal mining town. She leaves every comfort, every security, everything that is known in her pampered being. They even call her the nickname the Princess. And she goes to this place where there are no conveniences, no security, and everything she knows nothing about. However, it is here in her discomfort and disorientation and fears, in her absolute vulnerability, that she finds the destiny of her life, and she is resurrected. She comes alive for the first time in her life. My friends, as we wander these days together, let me offer a practice that we could do each day for the week, this coming week. So each evening, or if you're a morning person, you can do it in the morning, think about the previous day and think about a specific place or places that you saw evidence of God's presence. And be aware of where or when you might have felt nudged to move forward. What has been calling your heart? You just can't quite leave it. It just keeps coming back. And where have you turned away and refused or denied? Have you resisted or ignored any holy impulses? Are you willing to abandon your self-protection to make yourself absolutely vulnerable to encounter maybe a wider and maybe a wilder God than you have known? Let me offer this prayer for us. Bless to me, O God, the earth beneath my feet. Bless to me, O God, the path on which I go. Bless to me, O God, the resurrection that I seek. O God of all gods, bless to me my life. Amen. May your wanderings be your resurrection.